told my sister-in-law to stop using my baby for social media, and now she's furious. When I had my baby, I wanted to share the joy with close friends and family, nothing too extravagant. But then, my sister-in-law Jane started posting photos of my newborn all over her social media. At first, it seemed harmless, cute pictures here and there, but soon it turned into something far more invasive. It felt like she was using my child as a prop to gain followers and likes. I didn't want to be the overbearing parent, but after a few uncomfortable moments, I realized I had to say something. So I told her to stop using my baby for social media. What followed was a fiery confrontation that I never saw coming. Jane was furious, and what started as a simple request turned into a full-blown family dispute. It all started a few weeks after my baby was born. Like any new parent, I was eager to share milestones, first smiles, first steps, all those tiny moments that felt so significant. But my social media posts were limited to friends and family. I didn't want to inundate the entire world with pictures of my child. But Jane, my sister-in-law, seemed to have a different approach. It started innocently enough. She'd ask if she could take a picture of the baby during family gatherings. At first I didn't mind. Who wouldn't want cute baby pictures? But soon I noticed she wasn't just snapping a few photos for her own memory. She was posting them online, tagging me, sharing them with hundreds of her followers. I was uncomfortable, but I didn't say anything right away. I figured she was just excited, and maybe I was overreacting. But when Jane started posting multiple times a week, with hashtags like #momlife and #babygoals, it started to feel like she was using my baby to build her own online persona. One night, I saw a post that really rubbed me the wrong way. Jane had posted a picture of my baby asleep in a stroller, completely unposed, looking peaceful and unaware, and captioned it, "Can't wait for this cutie to hit 10,000 followers." The comment section was flooded with likes and comments from her followers, all doting on how adorable my baby was. I didn't say anything at first, but something about it felt wrong. It felt like Jane was using my child to gain attention. She wasn't sharing our baby's milestones for the sake of family memories. She was sharing them as if my child was an accessory to her personal brand. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it wasn't a big deal. But deep down, I knew something had to change. I couldn't allow my baby to be treated like content for someone else's social media. It wasn't her child, and it was my responsibility to set boundaries. It wasn't just the frequency of Jane's posts that bothered me. It was the way she seemed to make my baby the star of her social media. She posted photos without asking, made little videos of my baby interacting with family members, and even took close-up pictures of my child's hands and feet. It was becoming increasingly uncomfortable. It was no longer about sharing moments with close family. It was all about creating content for Jane's audience. The final straw came during a family barbecue. Jane was taking picture after picture of my baby, and I could tell she wasn't just documenting a special moment. She was making sure the shots were perfect, adjusting the angle, fixing the lighting, making sure my baby was in the perfect pose, all while making small talk with everyone else. It was as though she was more focused on how the photos would turn out than on the actual moment itself. At one point, she handed me my baby after taking several pictures, and without thinking, I blurted out, "Jane, can you stop? This is too much." She looked taken aback, but I didn't back down. "I don't want my baby's pictures posted all over your social media. It feels wrong. You're using them for likes and followers. I'm not comfortable with it." The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Jane's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, I thought she might just laugh it off, maybe even apologize for not considering my feelings. But instead, she crossed her arms and snapped back, "You're being ridiculous. It's just a few pictures. Everyone loves baby pics. You should be proud that your kid is so adorable that people want to see them." I could feel my blood boiling. It's not about pride. It's about respecting my boundaries. I'm the parent here. You can't just take pictures of my baby whenever you want and post them without asking. I want you to stop. Jane's expression shifted, and for a moment, I thought she might understand. But then, she shook her head in disbelief. "Are you seriously telling me I can't post about my niece? You're acting like I'm doing something wrong. I'm just sharing the joy of having a cute baby around." I felt the frustration bubbling up. I had been quiet for too long, letting Jane treat this like it was nothing, like I was overreacting. But it wasn't nothing. It was my child, and I had every right to protect their privacy. "I'm not saying you can't share pictures with family, but my baby's face doesn't need to be out there for the whole world to see," I said firmly, trying to stay calm. "Please, Jane, just stop." She looked at me, her expression a mix of disbelief and anger. "Fine. If you're going to be like that, then I'll stop posting. But don't act like I'm doing something wrong just because I want to share the happiness of having a baby around." I felt a knot form in my stomach. This wasn't just about photos anymore. This was about her not respecting my role as a parent. I was asking for something simple, respect and boundaries. But Jane didn't see it that way. She stormed off, muttering under her breath, and left the party early. I didn't know if this was just a misunderstanding or if things were about to get worse. But one thing was for sure, things had definitely changed between us. I had set a boundary, and Jane wasn't taking it well. The following days were tense. Jane barely spoke to me, and every time I saw her, it felt like there was an unspoken rift between us. I didn't regret standing my ground, but I could tell she was holding a grudge. She didn't respond to my texts, and when we crossed paths at family events, she acted distant, cold even. Then, a week later, I checked my phone to find a message from Jane. I was hesitant to open it, fearing another argument, but I decided I couldn't avoid it any longer. When I read the message, my stomach dropped. I can't believe you're acting like this. I've always supported you, and now you're making me feel like a criminal for sharing a few pictures. What kind of parent are you? I stared at the text for a while, trying to process the words. The fact that Jane was now framing the situation like I was the one in the wrong made my blood boil. It wasn't about sharing a few pictures. It was about her exploiting my baby for her social media following. But how could I make her see that? I sat down to respond, but nothing felt right. I didn't want to escalate things further, but I also couldn't let her make me feel guilty for asking her to stop. After a few minutes, I typed out a calm but firm response. I'm not trying to control what you post, Jane. I'm asking for respect for my baby's privacy. I don't want them used as content for likes or followers. That's all I'm asking for. I hit send and put my phone down, hoping this would end the argument. I wasn't sure if Jane would accept what I said, but it felt like the only choice. I needed to protect my baby, and if she couldn't understand that, then maybe our relationship would have to change. The next morning, I received a follow-up message from her. This time, she was even angrier. You don't get it, do you? I'm just sharing happiness. If I wanted to exploit your kid, I would have been making money off of them. But you can't even appreciate that. I guess I was wrong to think you'd be supportive. Reading her words made me feel sick. It wasn't just about baby pictures anymore. It was about Jane's inability to see where I was coming from. She wasn't acknowledging my feelings or my concerns. She was too focused on her own frustration and didn't seem to care about the boundary I had set. I knew the next steps weren't going to be easy. Jane wasn't just mad, she was hurt. And now she was trying to turn everything back on me, painting herself as the victim in this situation. And if that wasn't enough, she made sure to involve the rest of the family. It didn't take long for the family to get involved. A couple of days after Jane's messages, my phone started buzzing non-stop. First, it was a call from my mother-in-law, who asked if I had heard what Jane was saying. She sounded concerned, but there was an edge to her voice that made me uncomfortable. I had a feeling this was going to turn into something much bigger than I ever anticipated. Listen, I know Jane can be a little much sometimes, my mother-in-law started, but you need to understand, she was just excited. She loves your baby, and she just wanted to share those moments. I don't think you should have made such a big deal out of it. I felt a rush of frustration flood over me. Mom, it's not about her being excited. It's about respecting my boundaries. My baby isn't her content. I'm the parent here. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I understand you're upset, but maybe you should try to see it from Jane's perspective. She's been really hurt by this. She's feeling unappreciated. I could feel my patience wearing thin. I'm not trying to hurt anyone, but I won't apologize for wanting to protect my child's privacy. The conversation ended shortly after, and it didn't take long before the next call came in, this time from my husband's brother, who was more direct in his approach. I heard you told Jane to stop using your baby for social media, he said, his tone sharp. What's going on with you? Why can't you just let her have a little fun with it? I took a deep breath. It's not just about having fun, brother-in-law. It's about respecting me as a parent. She's using my baby for social media attention, without asking, and I'm not okay with it. He didn't seem to understand. But it's harmless. She's not making money off of it. She's just sharing joy. Why do you have to make everything a big issue? I felt my frustration growing with every word. It's not harmless. It's my baby. And I don't want them used for anyone's online fame, not even if it's for fun. I could sense the tension building. Well, if that's how you feel, I guess we all have our boundaries. But don't expect Jane to just forget this. She's really upset. And I don't think this is something you can just brush off. After I hung up, I felt a mix of anger and confusion. Why was it so hard for them to understand where I was coming from? Was I really being unreasonable by asking my sister-in-law to stop posting pictures of my baby? I knew I had to make it clear to everyone once and for all. This wasn't just about Jane. It was about my child's safety and privacy. But it felt like I was standing alone against my entire family. And that hurt more than I expected. The days following the family calls felt like a storm cloud hanging over me. Jane wasn't speaking to me. And every time I saw a message from a family member, I dreaded opening it. It wasn't just that Jane was mad. Now, it felt like the whole family was starting to take sides, and I was the one being painted as the bad guy. I tried to stay calm and focused, reminding myself that I was doing this for the right reasons. I had to protect my child, but the pressure was starting to take its toll. Every time I walked into a family gathering or picked up the phone, I felt like I was walking into a battlefield. Then one evening, things took an unexpected turn. I was at home, trying to relax after a long day when I received a text from Jane. My heart skipped a beat as I opened it. I didn't think you'd be this unreasonable. I thought you'd have my back, but now you've made this whole situation worse. If you can't support me, then I don't think I can have a relationship with you. I'm done. The words stung more than I expected. Jane had made it clear that she wasn't just angry with me, she was cutting ties. The finality of the message hit me hard. What had started as a simple disagreement about boundaries had escalated into something much larger. Jane was furious, and she had made it clear she wasn't interested in reconciliation. I felt a wave of guilt wash over me. Was I being too harsh? Maybe I had pushed her too far. Maybe I should have just let it slide. But then, I reminded myself, this wasn't just about me. This was about protecting my baby, ensuring that they wouldn't be treated like a social media prop. I had to stick to my guns, even if it meant losing a relationship with my sister-in-law. I tried to explain myself, sending her a message back. I'm sorry if you feel hurt, but I did this because I love my child and want to protect their privacy. I never wanted to hurt you, but I had to set a boundary. But my message went unanswered. The silence felt like the final nail in the coffin. Jane wasn't just angry anymore. She was done with me. The tension in the family continued to build. Every time I saw someone, it was the same story. Everyone was upset, and everyone seemed to be taking Jane's side. I didn't know what to do anymore. I felt isolated and misunderstood, as though I had done something terrible by standing up for my rights as a parent. I started to question whether I had made the right decision. Was it really worth losing my relationship with Jane? Was I being too protective, too overbearing? But as I thought about it more, I realized that I couldn't back down. If I let her continue to use my baby for content, what kind of message would that send? My child deserved respect, not to be treated as an accessory for someone else's social media validation. A few days after Jane's text, I received an unexpected message from my husband's cousin, Olivia. We hadn't spoken much in the past few months, but when I opened her text, I felt a flicker of hope. Hey, I just wanted to check in on you. I know things with Jane have been tough, but I think there's something you should know. I was immediately intrigued. What did Olivia know that I didn't? I had a sinking feeling it wasn't going to be good news. After everything with Jane, I wasn't sure who I could trust anymore. I talked to Jane last night, Olivia continued, and I can tell she's really hurt by all this. But she did mention something that made me think, maybe you're both seeing this from different angles. Jane was talking about how much she loved being an aunt, and how excited she was to be part of your life and share those moments with everyone. She wasn't thinking about the bigger picture. Maybe she didn't realize how important it was to you to protect your baby's privacy. I don't think she meant any harm. I read the message a few times, trying to make sense of it. It wasn't a direct apology from Jane, but it felt like Olivia was offering me a chance to see things from Jane's perspective. It was hard to believe that Jane didn't realize how invasive her behavior had been. But maybe Olivia had a point. Maybe Jane didn't understand why I was so adamant about keeping my baby off social media. Maybe she thought I was overreacting, as some of the other family members had suggested. I decided to reach out. I wasn't ready to give up, but I also knew I needed to hear Jane out, even if she was still upset with me. I sent her a message trying to keep things calm and open. Hey Jane, I've been thinking a lot about our conversation, and I want to make sure you understand where I'm coming from. I'm not trying to hurt you or stop you from enjoying the role of being an aunt. I just want to make sure we're respecting boundaries when it comes to my baby. If you're open to it, I'd love to talk this through. I didn't expect a response right away, but to my surprise, within an hour, I got a message back. I get it, I really do. I was just so excited, and I didn't think about it the way you're thinking about it. I never meant to cross any lines, but I also feel like you're pushing me away, and it hurts. I don't want to fight. Can we figure this out? I stared at the message for a while, feeling the weight of the situation. Jane was finally acknowledging what had happened, and I couldn't help but feel relieved. This wasn't going to be easy, but maybe we could find a way to meet in the middle. I responded quickly. I appreciate you saying that, Jane. I don't want to push you away either. I just need to make sure we're on the same page when it comes to my baby's privacy. Can we have a sit down soon and talk through it? I think that's the best way forward. Her reply came almost instantly. I agree. Let's do that. I'm sorry for making you feel like I wasn't respecting you. For the first time in a while, I felt a sense of calm. Maybe this wasn't the end of our relationship after all. Maybe we could rebuild the trust that had been broken. A few days later, Jane and I met at a quiet cafe, away from the rest of the family, so we could finally talk things through. I was nervous, my heart was racing, and I wasn't sure what to expect. Was this just going to be another tense argument, or could we finally find common ground? When Jane walked in, she seemed a little calmer than the last time we'd seen each other, but there was still that tension in the air. She looked at me, and I could tell she was waiting for me to make the first move. So, I did. "Hey," I said gently, trying to keep my voice even. "I'm really glad we're having this talk. I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened, and I want to make sure we both understand each other." Jane nodded and sat down across from me. "I've been thinking too, and I'll admit I was upset when you told me to stop posting about your baby. But I understand why you did it now. I really do. I just got caught up in the excitement of being an aunt, and I didn't think about how it might make you feel." I was relieved to hear her say that. It was the first time Jane had really acknowledged how I was feeling. "I appreciate that, Jane. It's not about you being excited. It's about setting boundaries for my baby's privacy. I know it's hard to understand sometimes, but I don't want my child to be part of anyone's content without their consent." Jane looked down at her hands for a moment, and I could see her processing everything. "You're right. I didn't think about it that way. I didn't realize how much it could affect you, or how it might feel like I was using your child as a way to get attention." It felt like a weight was lifting off my chest. Jane wasn't defensive anymore. She was listening, and I could tell she wanted to make things right. But there was still something I needed to address. "I understand that you didn't mean harm, Jane," I said carefully. "But I've had to learn that it's okay to set boundaries, even if it's uncomfortable. And when it comes to my baby, I have to be the one to make those decisions." Jane nodded, looking thoughtful. "I get it. I wasn't respecting your role as a parent. I was so focused on my own excitement, I didn't stop to think how it might affect you." The honesty in her words felt like a huge step in the right direction. I could feel the tension between us start to ease, but there was one more thing I needed to say. "I don't want to lose my relationship with you over this, Jane," I said, my voice softening. "I want to be able to share those moments with you, but only if it's done respectfully. I'm not saying you can't share pictures with family, but it has to be done with my consent, and it can't be all about your followers." Jane smiled a little, and I could see the sincerity in her eyes. "I want that too. I don't want to lose you. I understand where you're coming from now. I'll be more careful. I promise." For the first time in a while, I felt hopeful. Jane was taking responsibility for her actions, and I could see that she genuinely wanted to repair things between us. We had reached a compromise, and I felt like we could move forward. We talked for a little while longer, hashing out the details of what would be acceptable going forward. We agreed to check in with each other if either of us felt uncomfortable with something, and Jane promised to be more mindful about respecting my wishes when it came to social media. When we left the cafe, it felt like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild our relationship, stronger and more respectful than before. A few weeks had passed since Jane and I had that heart-to-heart conversation. We'd kept our word to each other. I didn't see her posting pictures of my baby all over her social media anymore, and I made sure to keep her updated on milestones in a way that felt comfortable for both of us. Things were slowly but surely returning to normal, but as with most family dynamics, there were still ripples from the conflict. I noticed subtle changes in how people treated me, small, almost imperceptible things. When I saw family members, some were more distant, avoiding eye contact or keeping the conversation short. Others, like Jane's mom, gave me tight smiles and awkward compliments. It was clear that not everyone agreed with the decision I had made. They might have understood why I was upset, but that didn't mean they were on my side. I still received the occasional passive-aggressive comment from Jane's side of the family, something along the lines of, "It's nice to see you're finally letting Jane be a part of your life again," or, "It must be hard to trust someone with something as small as a baby's photo." I couldn't tell if they were just trying to make me feel guilty or if they honestly didn't get it. Either way, I was trying not to let it get to me. I had set the boundaries I needed to set, and I wasn't going to apologize for protecting my baby. But then, one evening, I got an unexpected text from Jane. It wasn't a long message, just a simple one that caught me off guard. "I want to apologize again for everything. I realized I was using the wrong reasons to post those pictures. I'll be more careful from now on. I know we've been through some stuff, but I really do care about you and baby's name." I sat there for a moment, reading the message several times. This was different. Jane wasn't just saying she'd stop posting pictures, she was truly acknowledging the impact her actions had on me. It felt like a genuine apology, and for the first time, I felt like the tension between us might finally be lifting. I thought about the family dynamics, the awkwardness I still felt at gatherings, and whether things could ever go back to what they were before. But then I realized that maybe things didn't need to go back to before. Maybe this was just part of growing up and learning to respect each other's boundaries, no matter how difficult it might be. I decided to respond. Thank you, Jane. I really appreciate you understanding. It means a lot. Let's just keep making sure we're on the same page moving forward. Her response was swift. Of course. I'm glad we can talk about it. I'll be more mindful. Thanks for not giving up on me. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a good start. Maybe over time, things would smooth over, and we could rebuild our relationship. For now, though, I was content with the progress we had made. Jane and I were in a better place than we had been, and I wasn't going to let the pressure from the rest of the family sway me from my decision to protect my baby. As I look back on everything that happened, I can't help but think about the importance of setting boundaries, especially when it comes to family. It's so easy to let others step over the line in the name of being nice or not causing drama. But at the end of the day, I had to do what was best for my baby, even if it meant standing up to family members I cared about. So, what about you? Have you ever had to set a boundary with a family member, even though it felt uncomfortable? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear about your experiences and how you navigated difficult situations. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more. Stay tuned for the next one, and remember, sometimes standing up for what's right might mean a little conflict, but it's always worth it in the end.